Welcome candidates, fellow Rotarians, and interested people of Erlanger. My name is Jeff Simpson, and I represent the Rotary Club of Kenton County. This forum is hosted by the Rotary Club of Kenton County as a service to the community to allow these mayoral candidates one more time to opportunity to explain why they think they're the best person to lead Erlanger through the challenges they are currently facing and how they best position Erlanger to address future challenges. We also like to thank Dr. Kathy Burkhart, Superintendent of Erlanger School District, for her support and for providing the venue for tonight's debate. Also, today is a special day for Rotary International, as it has been identified as World Polio Day. Rotary members in Erlanger and Ellesmere are on mains, reaching out on the World Polio Day to raise awareness, raise funds, and support the end of polio, a vaccine-preventable disease that was still threatens children in parts of the world today. Since Rotary and its partners launched the Global Polio Eradication Initiative 30 years ago, the incidence of polio worldwide have plummeted from 350,000 cases a year to 22 cases last year and only 20 cases this year so far. There is a flyer available to give more details about Rotary's efforts and how you can contribute to the effort to eradicate polio. If you have an interest to learn more about the Rotary Club of Kenton County, please join us at the Mayoral Cottage in the upstairs room on Thursdays at noon every week. It is a 1-hour meeting, so you can just do your lunch here. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for tonight's forum. He is fellow Rotarian Matt Grimes. For the last 20 years, Matt and his wife Noelle has owned and operated the Mayoral Cottage in Erlanger. Assisting Matt tonight is fellow Rotarian Debbie McKinney, who is assuming the role as timekeeper. Debbie is a publicist who works for many nonprofits and for-profit organizations in Northern Kentucky. Thank you very much.
Hi, welcome to our forum tonight. If you would, please turn off your cell phones. The Rotary has a policy that if a phone goes off in one of their meetings, that person gets to contribute $5 to our scholarship program. So if you leave it on, just be ready to Kenton County Sheriff's Deputy Ron Johnson will be happy to collect that money on our behalf. Other rules. Outbursts will not be tolerated. Sheriff's Deputy Ron Johnson has agreed to remove any individual who attempts to disrupt this forum or proceedings. Please, applause will only be allowed at the introduction of candidates and at the conclusion of the forum. The rules that we have in place, our timekeeper right here is going to hold up a yellow sign. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to answer a question. At 1 minute, she will hold up the sign, letting them know that they should be about halfway through with their answer. The red sign will come up, signifying 15 seconds left for their remarks. The bell will be rung at the 2-minute mark. If the candidate continues to talk after that, then I will come up with something to say and talk right over them. I missed any other rules? Everybody's got a seat that wants a seat? Very good. We had a coin toss in the beginning. Randy won that coin toss and he deferred the first question to Miss Betty. But before we get to that, I've got introductions for introducing Jessica Fetty-Wright, our prep first. It's a tradition within Rotary that we do not use titles within our meetings. So while both of these candidates are elected officials and deserve the title of councilman or council person, I'm going to choose to use their last name, which is a Rotary tradition. Or choose to use their first name, which is a Rotary tradition. So first up is Jessica Fetty. Jessica has been a resident of Erlanger for over 20 years. She was elected to the Erlanger City Council in 2017 and serves on the Fire Committee and Planning and Development Services Management Board. Jessica's professional career has included 10 years of reporting, analysis, and management experience, along with being a small business owner. Jessica is a graduate of Dixie Heights High School and received a bachelor's degree in economics and business administration from Northern Kentucky. Jessica and her husband Jim have 3 children, Grace, James, and Max. Jessica is a member of the St. Barbara Parish and a member of the St. Henry Parish Education Commission, and is also a volunteer coach for her children's basketball and baseball teams. Jessica Fetty.
Thank you so much. I wanted to thank my friends. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to my neighbors in Erlanger. And thank you all so much. I mean, it's amazing to look around this room and see how much community involvement we have. This is something to be proud of, to be excited about, how great this turnout is. So like Matt says, I've been a resident of Erlanger for over 20 years. I was born originally in New Jersey. I moved to Kentucky when I was 4 years old, and my family opened up a business out in Burlington, Kentucky called Vienna Pizza. It was a family restaurant, and our family poured everything into that business. The entrepreneurial spirit, the teamwork, the dedication, the hard work that we did at that store holds true in my heart every single day. It's what guides me, it's what I work for, and I'm extremely grateful for those lessons that I've learned. I moved to Erlanger when I was 12. I met my someday husband just up the street when we were playing Capture the Flag. The lifelong friends that I've made on that street are so extremely important. Now some of them are just like family. I attended Dixie Heights High School and graduated from NKU with a bachelor's degree in economics and business administration. After I graduated, Jim and I got married, and we bought our first home on Timberlake Avenue, 525. We brought home all 3 of our children to that house, Grace, who is 9, James, who's 7, and Max, who's 3. After Max came along, we needed a little extra space, so we decided to build a house out in Lakeland. We knew Erlanger was our home, and this is where we needed to stay. As for my career, I worked at Fidelity Investments for the majority of my career in the financial services and quality control and risk management department. It's time for a new generation to lead our city. Do I think that I know all the answers? Absolutely not. But I have extreme confidence in our department heads and the knowledge that I've gained over the last 2 years being a councilwoman for the city of Erlanger. I'm running to reignite a culture of compassion, cooperation, and respect within our great city, and I look forward to being your mayor.
Thank you. Her opponent is Randy Blankenship. Randy is a lifelong resident of Erlanger. He was first elected to the Erlanger City Council in 2002, where he served until 2006, and then was re-elected to the City Council in 2009. Randy serves on the Economic Development and Finance Committee as an alternative to the Northern Kentucky Planning Development Services. Randy has practiced law for over 30 years with experience in litigation, including personal injury, employment law, consumer protection, business litigation, and family law. Randy serves on the boards of the Erlanger Housing and Development Corporation and the Envision Learning Center. Randy is also a member of the board of directors for the Baptist Life Communities, Inc. Randy is a graduate of the Chase College of Law. Randy and his wife, Kathy, have 2 children, Amy and Ben. Please welcome Randy Blankenship.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. And I'm really thrilled to see how many people are here tonight. It does speak well of the involvement of our community and the interest we have in the issues facing our community. As Matt said, I've grown up in Erlanger. I lived here, my parents moved here when I was in the 3rd grade. My dad's is from Erlanger as well. He's a graduate of Lloyd High School and grew up on Price Avenue for a while and with his parents. And you know, I've been here since I was in the 3rd grade. Went to school here at Lloyd, graduated here at Lloyd, and I raised my family here at Lloyd. In fact, when my wife and I got married, She wasn't from Erlanger, but we got along anyway. And when we decided to get married, we were going to move. And the choices were Erlanger and nowhere else. And since we've been married now for 34 years. We have had 3 homes. One was in Erlanger, the second was in Erlanger, and the third was in Erlanger. We have lived on Locust Street, we lived in Woodland Hills on Canterbury Court, we live now on Erlanger Road. I've been very pleased in Erlanger. My business is in Erlanger. I operate a law firm, and I'm here in Erlanger. I think this election is really about community and about service and about experience. As my family has always stressed the importance of service. So I have a commitment to Erlanger, but also I've been taught by example the commitment to service. My grandparents, when they moved here to Erlanger, were one of the founding members of Erlanger Nazarene Church, which is still around today. My dad and my mom raised me to appreciate service. They were always active in their community, school events, Cub Scouts, their churches, everything. So we were not just told about service, we were taught it by example. And I think we learned from that example. And Kathy and I have tried to pass that example on to our children. Our daughter Amy, who's sitting there in the first row as well, she has always served her community in volunteer efforts, and she now works at Fidelity, and she's working on her master's at NKU. Our son Ben graduated from Lloyd, and he is now serving in the United States Army as a member of the 82nd Airborne Division, and that's a fine testament of service, of course. And so, this has been about service and commitment to service. And I think the experience that I have had on council, I've learned a lot on my experience on council too. In my 13 and a half years on council, I've learned quite a bit. I've served on the Fire and EMS Committee, the Economic Development Committee, and the Finance Committee. And I think we've achieved some great progress in those fields, and I'd like to have the opportunity to continue. Thank you.
Candidates, if I could get you, Randy, if you would start, please talk a little closer to your mic. Diane, can you hear him back there?
I can hear him, but not her.
Okay. If you would, just give me a 1, 2, 3 in the mic.
1, 2, 3.
Jessica, if you would do the same.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Is that better? Thank you very much. As stated with the coin toss, Randy did win the coin toss, deferred the first question. So the very first question is going to go to Jessica. It's a tough one. Jessica, you and Randy are both very good customers of the Colonial Cottage. Thank you. The Colonial Cottage is well known for its geta dishes and fried chicken. Besides those two, what is your favorite dish?
The grilled chicken salad, because the ranch dressing is my absolute favorite, and being gluten-free, I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Randy, what's your favorite dessert at the cottage?
Oh, I'm trying to avoid desserts. I'm trying to think. I haven't gotten a dessert in a while, because usually your fried chicken fills me up, to be honest with you. I would say you've got some pies that are really good, and coconut cream, as I recall, I had once time there, and that's about my favorite pie, so I'll go with that.
And I completely understand if I try to come back with dessert. So I do the same thing. All right. Thank you very much. We all make mistakes, missteps, and misstatements. Jessica, if you were mayor 4 years ago, what would you have done differently than Mayor Hermes? This is the first question. 2 minutes starting now.
That's a great question. What would I have done differently? When I come into any type of situation, I want to make sure that I evaluate everything possible. I want to make sure that I understand every situation, and I do research for everything before I make any kind of decisions. I want to make sure that I'm making educated decisions. Establishing the relationships also, making sure that, like for example, when I first came into council, I made sure that I met with each one of our council members individually to make sure that I established a relationship with them. I wanted to be able to make sure that across the 11 different people that I understood where I could learn from them and use their skills in order to accomplish something great for Erlanger. I also wanted to be able to provide them knowledge of who I am and what skills I bring to the table. Because I was new, I'm the youngest one that's on council. I wanted to make sure that they understood that I did have skills and talents that were unique. So making sure that those relationships were established and built prior to making decisions probably would be the biggest thing that's important to me.
You would stretch more time there. Thank you. Thank you very much. Randy, what program or initiative of Mayor Hermes has worked out better than you expected or predicted?
I'm not sure he's actually proposed much in the way of programs. Most of them have come from council and the council committees. I think what has worked out very well has been the TIF district, Tax and Increment Financing District, that's led to the redevelopment of the Showcase Cinema properties. I think we're starting to see a lot of businesses coming through there. Coca-Cola's coming in with over 400 jobs. Perfetti Van Melli's relocating there, bringing a lot of jobs to the city. Duro Bag is coming to there, going to bring a lot more jobs to the city as well. So I think most of the initiatives that I've actually seen have come from council. And I think they've done well.
All right, thank you very much. Randy, if you win the election, what will be your top 3 priorities?
Top 3 priorities. First off, I wanted to improve the appearance of Erlanger. Erlanger is a beautiful city, but there are some areas where we are not looking the way we should. So what I would like to do is do an overall review of our codes to see if there are gaps in the code that find that where people are not maintaining their property appropriately. The second thing I would want to do is find out why those who are not maintaining their property appropriately are not doing so. Is it simply that they are defined in the law, that they're absentee landlords, for example, that don't want to comply? Those have to be dealt with. But secondly, it could also be senior citizens who are on a fixed income and they have no ability to take care of their property and they might need some help. And there are grants and loans available. Other cities have explored. I'd like to see us do that. So that would be the first thing I would do, is improving the appearance of the city. Secondly, we need to continue to invest in Erlanger. We have done a good job of bringing new business to Erlanger. The Showcase Cinema property is a prime example of that. I'd like to continue to do that. We have offered a lot of tax incentives and programs to bring some of these jobs to the city. I'd like to see us continue doing that and look for ways not only to deal with larger businesses, but to help the smaller businesses. Small business is important to me. I'm one of them. So I think we need to help them. The third thing I would do is just try to improve our feel of community. And by that I mean we need to have more community events. I'd like to see us have a community center. And I'd like to see us improve our parks. One of the things that I've wanted to do all along is to put in a veterans park. John Dunhoff suggested that to council several years ago, and I'd like to explore that idea some more. And I think that could help beautify the city and also keep a few more green spaces in the city so that when you drive down Dixie Highway, it's just not one concrete lot after the other, but we actually have some green space, which I think will help the city look better and help people feel more in the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jessica, same question. Top 3 priorities.
I want to continue reducing taxes. So over the last 4 years, we have decreased our property taxes and our tangible taxes. And we have room to do more reduction in taxes without it affecting our services in the slightest. What we need to pay attention to is the franchise fee that's on all of your utility bills. It's 3%. And previously it's been allocated to our Erlanger dispatch. But at this time, since we have merged with the county, we no longer have dispatch. So therefore, we need to start reevaluating whether or not we're going to continue to take in that 3% franchise fee on your utilities. We also need to allocate additional funds for our sidewalks and our roads. What I want to make sure is that if we're doing our roads, that we're also taking a look at the sidewalks at the same time, and we're being consistent with our improvements across our city. So anytime that we're looking at redoing a road, let's automatically evaluate whether or not they have a sidewalk, and if their sidewalk is in disrepair, let's go ahead and add that to the project plan to make sure that we're doing both at the same time. The biggest thing that I want to accomplish is with the addition of our police social worker. We all know that heroin is an issue. We all know the opioid epidemic is right here in Erlanger, and we need to make sure that we are a leader in this. So with the police social worker, she has the ability to create what is called an angel program. It is a peer-to-peer support system that will be able to offer a tremendous amount of support to those that are suffering from addiction in our community.
Thank you very much. This is going to dovetail right into, or at least I assume it is, but both of your all's answers were a little bit different. I ask you what your priorities are. What do you think the top 3 challenges are today facing Erlanger? And what would you do to address this? Yes, you're first, please.
I mean, definitely the opioid epidemic. I think it's extremely important that we're already viewed as a leader in the area because we have some behavioral health within our city. Transitions is building the additional facility with 180 beds down on 3L. The Grateful Life Center, with our police social worker, she's helping get people into rehabilitation very quickly. So, we just need to keep supporting our police social worker program, build the angel program, and I think we're moving in the right direction. I would even like to be able to cross over to Ellesmere, work with Mayor Lenhoff, and see if we can share services, throw in an angel program, and offer it to Ellesmere residents as well. Another thing that we need to focus on is our pension costs. So with the pension crisis that's happening, the city was going to see a 50% increase in our pension contribution rate. So we need to make sure that we are advocating for our citizens, because ultimately the 50% increase in 1 year was going to be $1 million in our over $15 million budget. So we need to make sure that we're advocating down in Frankfurt for our residents, because ultimately it's the taxpayers that are going to pay this increase in our contribution rate. So we need to be able to understand what's going on and be able to apply potential solutions to get that issue resolved. Another issue is our sidewalks. We need additional sidewalks. When I think about the Erlanger School District children that are walking to schools, they're not every single street that they walk have sidewalks. We need to make sure that we are providing a walkable community for them and safe transportation to school.
Thank you very much. Debbie was grabbing the gavel there. Same question, Randy. Top 3 challenges facing Erlanger.
Well, I think first I do agree that the heroin epidemic is one of the largest challenges facing this, not just Erlanger, but this entire community, this entire state, and this region. We have been a leader in Erlanger in dealing with this. Back when the Grateful Life Center was brought to Erlanger, transitions, they were resisted in a lot of communities. The Erlanger Council unanimously supported that, and I think that was far seeing, because that was before there was a heroin epidemic, and that enabled some services to be available that would not have been otherwise available, and I was proud to vote in favor of that as well. So that's one of the issues. Certainly, I will allude back to our city's appearance and, as well. I think there are areas where we really need to start working on our appearance. I think that's done in our public spaces. I think there are as well as individual property owners. I think we also need to work, and this has been a challenge we've been meeting successfully, in attracting more businesses to the city. If we attract more businesses, that of course will increase our payroll tax revenues, which will enable us to lower the taxes on everybody else. 2 of the things I would like to see us do is the franchise fee, and I actually advocated for that in January when we had our budget meeting. And secondly, I'd like to see us work on reducing our insurance premium tax. And again, we've not been able to do that up to this point because we have not had the revenue. But I think once we start seeing the revenue coming in from the Showcase Cinema developments, we're going to have that ability. I think that will enable us to continue making improvements to the city, such as sidewalks, which we already do evaluate whenever we put a new street, and we already evaluate to see if a sidewalk is needed. And that's something we've been doing for quite some time, and it's already part of our process. So I think I'd like to see us continue doing that, and all these things, again, making us a better community, because it will improve our appearance, it will improve our tax base, and it will make things better for our residents.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good question. I have a follow-up question to that. The franchise fee that you mentioned, Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, it is a franchise, most communities have this. And there's a fee you'll see on some of your utility bills, and it was originally initiated for the purpose of paying for dispatch. And we have now merged with the county's dispatch system, so I do think we can start looking to phase that fee out. I think we probably would need to have more revenues coming in before we can eliminate it completely, because obviously we don't want to have it damage to our services. Because Erlanger, one thing it's always done is prided itself on excellent services, so we don't want to hurt our services. But on the other hand, I think we can work to phase that out of existence over a few years. But I think we need to have the revenues coming in from the showcase properties and elsewhere so that we can actually afford to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Jessica, you mentioned this one, and I, myself, as a consumer of the city services, I'm really not interested in pensions and personnel matters, but I am interested in having the best services available. If I have a slip and fall at the restaurant, I want to know that the person that shows up is capable of handling the situation there today. So what do you think the biggest challenge is with the fire department? What does the biggest challenge the fire department faces today in providing those services?
I think the biggest challenge is turnover. We need to make sure that we are staying competitive with our salaries. I think over the last 12 years, the salaries had not been adjusted properly in order to stay competitive in the market. So what we did last year was we increased their salaries by 6%. I went to the Northern Kentucky Area Development District, and I was able to get data from all surrounding cities on what their individual firefighters, the chief, all of their positions were being paid. And we were able to take a look at, across the region, where do we fall into place? So we were able to identify using this data that we needed to make a change. We needed to increase their salary by 6% in order to get us just into competitive mode. Because turnover is huge. It's wasteful because we're spending money to train that person, we're spending money to outfit that person. So we need to make sure that our turnover is as low as possible. We already have a phenomenal culture. I hear from our police department, our fire department, public works, everybody loves being here. But in the end, they have to be paid properly. So we need to make sure that we're paying them properly. And then we're also looking for other benefits that could attract people and retain people. For example, one of the things that I spearheaded was paternity leave, being able to offer a week of paternity leave for our firefighters and police officers and our public works. Anybody in our city staff, they get a week of paternity leave. That's something that not a lot of cities are doing. So we have to understand what is our competitive advantage? What keeps our people here?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Randy, do you agree with that? Biggest challenge faced by the fire department's turnover?
I think that was a challenge being faced by the fire department. I don't think it is any longer. Actually, about 5 years ago, we started giving a very intense study of salary structure. And I recall when Ms. Pitts and I were on the finance committee together, we engaged in a lot of study of the finance, because we were seeing some turnover, not only the police, but not only fire, but the police as well. And so we began studying that, and we worked very closely with our Chief Administrative Officer, Mark Fields. And we started comparing at that time our salary structure to the other cities, and we realized we were having some difficulty, we were falling behind. So we at that point began bringing the salaries up to measure. And at that point, over those years, the turnover problem has been virtually eliminated. In fact, I was talking to our police chief the other day, asking if do we still need to continue pushing the salaries up even higher, or have we solved the turnover problem? And he told me that we have solved it, that the problem it's just not a problem any longer. So this has been something we've been working on, and I think it's something we've dealt with as well. So turnover is always a problem if you lose people because of the expense of hiring and retraining, of course. And compensation has been one of the reasons why we were losing people, but that has been a problem we did address. We started falling behind the areas, compensation in the areas when the economy was so bad. We were trying to hold the line on taxes, and we were trying to stay competitive. And those were two kind of contradictory goals in some ways. So, but once the economy started turning around and we were able to generate more revenue, jobs in the city. We started at that point raising the salaries, and that was able to enable us to become competitive again. And now we're keeping a very close watch on that, and I think the problem has been resolved.
Very good, thank you very much. Working with the Erlanger-Ellesmere School District, according to Dr. Burkhart, both city, Erlanger and Ellesmere, do work with them.